The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web. But what happens when something from beyond the stars arrives with its own immutable power? A will so absolute it threatens to unravel the very fabric of existence. No ship appeared on the scanners, no hyperspace signature registered. Yet, a shimmering, impossible tear in the fabric of reality blossomed in the deep core. A region thought impenetrable and eternally shielded. It wasn't a hyperspace anomaly, nor a natural cosmic phenomenon. It was a wound, a violent, unnatural aperture through which something alien, vast, and terrifying was disgorged into the heart of the Galactic Empire. The first Imperial fleet to detect the anomaly was Admiral Mahdi's Third Sector Fleet, patrolling the secure lanes leading to Coruscant itself. Their long-range sensors, designed to identify known vessel classes and energy signatures, flickered with incomprehensible data. Then, a massive, dreadnought-sized warship, unlike anything ever conceived in galactic shipyards, emerged from the fading tear. Behind it, a swirling vortex of smaller, angular craft, followed by what appeared to be biological abominations in transport. This was Sanctuary 2, the personal flagship of Thanos, and its accompanying Chitauri and Outrider armada. The Mad Titan stood on his bridge, a colossal figure of purple skin and golden armor, his chiseled jaw set in grim determination. His cold, calculating eyes absorbed the holographic readouts of this new galaxy. Blue-white star systems, unfamiliar planetary classifications, and an overwhelming surge of life force readings, chaotic, uncontrolled, unbalanced. He had sought new challenges, new worlds to bring to heel, to impose his twisted vision of universal salvation, and this galaxy, teeming with trillions, presented a grand opportunity. His journey here was not accidental. A fragment of ancient cosmic power, a relic he had used to breach dimensional barriers, hummed faintly on his glove. Now inert, its purpose served. He had chosen his destination with meticulous precision, targeting a nexus of power that resonated even across realities. "Report," Thanos rumbled, his voice a low thrum that vibrated through the deck. His general, a gaunt, obsidian-skinned female known as Proxima Midnight, knelt before him. "Lord Thanos, preliminary scans indicate a highly centralized galactic government. The dominant species appears to be human, though numerous other biological forms exist. Defenses are robust, but technologically primitive compared to our advanced kinetic barriers and energy projection. No immediate threats detected, save for their primitive starship formations attempting to hail us." Thanos merely grunted, a sound of dismissive contempt. "Primitive. Good. They will understand order swiftly." His gaze drifted to a holographic representation of Coruscant, a jewel of a world, encased in layers of shimmering infrastructure and bathed in the artificial glow of quadrillions of lives. An obscene overpopulation, a testament to unchecked growth. A perfect target. Target their command nexus, the capital world. Leave no doubt as to our intent. Let them know a new order has arrived. The Third Sector fleet, comprising 3 Imperial-class star destroyers and numerous smaller craft, was decimated before they could even power up their shields to full capacity. The Chitauri cruisers, fast and aggressive, swarmed the Imperial formations, their energy weapons tearing through ray shields as if they were tissue paper. The Imperial star destroyers, icons of galactic oppression, were ripped apart, their crews screaming in the vacuum of space. The raw, unbridled aggression and unexpected firepower of Thanos' fleet caught the Empire completely off guard. This wasn't a rebel skirmish. This was an invasion from beyond comprehension. On Coruscant, within the opulent chambers of the Imperial Palace, Emperor Palpatine felt a sudden, profound disturbance in the Force. It wasn't the cold, calculating hate of a rival Sith, nor the desperate hope of the Jedi. It was a foreign entity, a massive, unfeeling presence that radiated a cold certainty, a logic utterly alien to the Force's ebb and flow. It was like a black hole had suddenly opened in the cosmos, not merely absorbing light, but devouring the very essence of life energy, leaving only a chilling void in its wake. This was a presence unlike any he had ever encountered, one that felt outside the Force, yet profoundly impacting it. Meanwhile, on the bridge of Sanctuary 2, Thanos pointed a gauntleted finger at the holographic Coruscant. The great city world, teeming with uncontrolled life, a testament to unchecked consumption. We will bring balance to it first. He looked out at the vastness of the alien galaxy, his eyes alight with a cold, terrifying purpose. Let the culling begin. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The initial strike on Coruscant was swift, brutal, and devastatingly precise. Thanos was not interested in prolonged sieges or resource-intensive ground campaigns for initial dominance. His objective was decapitation, the severing of the serpent's head to send its body into chaos. While Imperial command was still reeling from the annihilation of Admiral Mahdi's fleet, the Chitauri advanced guard, led by Proxima Midnight and her lieutenants, pierced Coruscant's planetary shield. It wasn't a full-scale invasion force, but a lightning assault designed to sow terror and target the Empire's vital neural pathways. Swarms of Chitauri chariots, sleek and deadly, tore through atmospheric traffic, their energy lances incinerating civilian airspeeders and Imperial patrols alike. Outrider dropships, dark and ominous, pierced the lower atmosphere, disgorging their ravenous, multi-limbed soldiers directly into the sprawling Imperial cityscapes. Their primary targets were the Imperial Security Bureau headquarters, the Grand Vizier's offices, and crucial communication hubs linking Coruscant to the wider galaxy. Within hours, the carefully constructed network of Imperial control began to unravel. Panic erupted on a scale Coruscant had not witnessed since the last days of the Republic. Grand Moff Tarkin, overseeing the Death Star's construction from his orbital office, received fragmented, desperate reports of an unidentified alien invasion on the capital world itself. He found the reports utterly bewildering, almost laughable in their scope, until he saw the real-time sensor readings. Coruscant's orbital defenses, formidable as they were struggling to even register the enemy's energy signatures. It was as if they were fighting ghosts, extremely violent ghosts. Back on Sanctuary 2, Thanos observed the chaos he had unleashed with clinical satisfaction. Their Grand Vizier is dead. Their primary communications array is severed. The capital is in disarray. Now, the secondary phase. He turned to Ebony Maw, his ethereal general, whose voice was a silken whisper. My lord, our probes have identified a formidable individual. A being of immense power, shrouded in what these Imperials call the dark side of the Force. They call him Darth Vader. He commands considerable martial authority and appears to be mobilizing a counterattack. Thanos' eyes gleamed with cold interest. A challenge then. Good. Let him come. I will break his will and add his strength to mine. Or I will extinguish his existence as a testament to my power. On Coruscant, Darth Vader moved through the chaos like a dark storm. The screams of civilians, the whine of Chitauri energy lances, the crunch of Outrider claws against Durasteel, all were merely background noise to the pounding rhythm of his own rage. He had felt the alien presence in the Force, a cold, alien current that defied his every attempt to comprehend or dominate it. It was like trying to grasp smoke. As his TIE advanced, roared through the ravaged skyline, escorting a squadron of elite 501st Legion troopers to the Imperial Palace, he saw the true scale of the invasion. Chitauri chariots harried his fighters, but Vader's piloting was a force of nature, his blasters finding their marks with merciless efficiency. He was seeking the source, the alien hand that dared touch his Emperor's domain. He landed his TIE in a ruined landing bay near the palace's deepest levels, where Palpatine resided. The air shimmered with dark-side energy, mixed with the strange, unholy hum of the alien technology. Stormtroopers fought with desperate courage, but the Outriders were relentless, their sheer numbers and animal ferocity overwhelming. Vader activated his crimson blade, the hum a familiar, comforting song of death. He carved a path through the beast-like aliens, each swing of his lightsaber a precise arc of destruction, lopping off limbs, heads, and tearing through their chitinous armor. He felt their presence in the Force, a primal, unthinking hunger, utterly devoid of the calculated malice he was accustomed to from Jedi or rebel scum. But then, He stopped. A massive shadow fell over him. A silence descended amidst the cacophony, as if the very air was being throttled. Standing amidst a pile of dismembered outriders and shredded stormtroopers, his back to a massive breach in the palace wall, was a figure of immense power. It was Thanos. He was unarmed, his massive hands clasped behind his back, his golden armor gleaming faintly in the flickering emergency lights. He simply observed Vader, his expression unreadable, a silent appraisal of a new kind of foe. "You possess a powerful will," Thanos rumbled, his voice echoing in the ravaged chamber, "and an impressive display of destructive capability. But your power is derived from a mystical energy, fleeting and dependent. Mine is inherent. You are a tool. I am a force of nature." Vader's response was immediate and savage. Without a word, he lunged, lightsaber held high, a blur of red against the purple Titan. The clash was inevitable. The galaxy would soon learn that even the mightiest instruments of galactic oppression could be shattered by a will far older, far colder, and far more absolute. The hum of Darth Vader's lightsaber met the hardened flesh of Thanos' left forearm with a searing hiss. But instead of slicing through, the blade merely scorched the skin, drawing a deep crimson welt before glancing off. Thanos didn't even flinch. His expression remained one of bored assessment, a slight tilt of his head indicating mild surprise, but no pain. He then effortlessly backhanded Vader, a strike that sent the Sith Lord tumbling across the ravaged chamber, his Durasteel-reinforced armor groaning under the impact. The sudden, brutal physicality was beyond anything Vader had ever encountered. The Emperor's Force lightning, the most potent blasters, even the kinetic energy of a crashing starship, none had ever affected him with such raw, unyielding force. Vader scrambled to his feet, his internal systems whirring as he analyzed the unprecedented resistance. This alien was not merely strong, he was fundamentally impervious to conventional attacks, even from a lightsaber, the elegant weapon of the Jedi. His anger flared, a supernova of dark side power that crackled around him. He extended his hand, channeling his full fury, and unleashed a torrent of force lightning, blue-white energy arcing across the chamber, slamming into Thanos' chest. Thanos endured the onslaught, a grimace finally marring his face, but it was a look of annoyance, not agony. The lightning sparked and flared against his armor, his skin sizzling, but he remained standing, unmoving. He took a single deliberate step forward, then another, walking through the force lightning as if it were a mild summer rain. With each step, the alien presence in the force grew stronger, denser, a cold, suffocating weight that pressed down on Vader's mind. "A rudimentary form of energy manipulation," Thanos observed, his voice tinged with disdain, still walking forward. "Impressive for organic life forms, but ultimately, insufficient." As Thanos reached him, Vader unleashed a force push of apocalyptic proportions, tearing up chunks of the palace floor and sending them hurtling towards the Titan. Thanos simply punched through the debris, then caught Vader's outstretched arm in a vice-like grip. The sound of rending armor and protesting cybernetics filled the air as Thanos squeezed. Vader roared, a sound of agony and pure, unadulterated hatred. He struggled, attempting to leverage the force, but against Thanos' sheer physical might, it was like a child wrestling a leviathan. "Your force is merely a connection to this dimension's inherent energy," Thanos stated, his voice now a low growl of triumph. "A network, like a cosmic nervous system. Useful perhaps, but not inherently powerful enough to break true will. You rely on it. I embody power." With a final, sickening crunch, Thanos ripped Vader's arm clean from its socket, sparking wires and fluids spraying across the floor. Vader fell to his knees, his lightsaber clattering uselessly beside him. He stared at his severed limb, then up at Thanos, his hate-filled gaze meeting the Titan's cold, impassive eyes. This was true defeat, unlike anything he had ever known. Suddenly, a cacophony of blaster fire erupted from the corridors. Elite 501st Stormtroopers, led by Captain Rex, having been transferred to Coruscant security after the Clone Wars. His loyalty unwavering, poured into the chamber, laying down a concentrated barrage on Thanos. Rex, seeing Vader's incapacitation, immediately diverted fire, focusing every blaster on the alien. Thanos, momentarily distracted, turned his attention to the incoming fire. The stormtrooper blasters, while far less potent than a lightsaber or force lightning, were numerous. He shrugged off most of the bolts, but the sheer kinetic impact, combined with the heat, began to irritate him. He let out a roar, a sound of pure, unbridled rage, and slammed his good hand into the ground. A shockwave erupted, ripping through the chamber, sending stormtroopers flying, their plastoid armor shattering like glass against the concussive force. Rex, caught in the blast, was thrown against a wall, his helmet cracked, his vision blurring. Thanos then looked back at Vader, who lay slumped, defeated, but still conscious. "You are broken," the Titan declared. "A magnificent weapon, but broken. You will be rebuilt. You will serve." Thanos did not kill those he believed could be repurposed. He saw in Vader a formidable will, a dark resolve that, if properly channeled, could be a devastating asset. Before the remaining stormtroopers could regroup, Thanos lifted the prone Vader with one hand, tossing him over his shoulder like a sack of dead weight. He turned towards the massive breach in the wall, leaving behind a scene of utter carnage. The stormtroopers, disoriented but defiant, opened fire again. But it was too late. Thanos leaped through the gaping hole, disappearing into the Coruscant night, carrying the unconscious Darth Vader. The galaxy's most feared enforcer had fallen. Captured by an entity from beyond the stars, a terrifying testament to a power the Empire could not even comprehend. The Imperial Palace, once the unchallenged symbol of galactic might, now bled light from 1,000 wounds, a grim beacon of a new, unimaginable threat. Emperor Palpatine felt Vader's defeat as a searing brand across his own consciousness, a blow more potent than any physical wound. The primal fear that had momentarily gripped him transformed into a cold, terrifying fury. This alien, this Thanos, had not only dared to invade his sacred capital, but had defeated his greatest enforcer, twisting the Force's connection to his apprentice into a conduit of pure, unadulterated agony. Palpatine had never encountered such a defiant, unyielding presence, one that seemed to stand outside the Force's conventional dominion, yet impacted it with the force of a cosmic cataclysm. Within the deepest, most shielded chambers of the Imperial Palace, Palpatine communicated with his remaining Grand Moffs and commanders, his voice a venomous hiss even through the vocoder. "This anomaly," he began, his yellow eyes blazing, "is a direct threat to my absolute rule, to the Empire, to order itself." He paced the obsidian floor, his cloaked form a shadow of malevolent intent. "Admiral Piet, mobilize the entirety of the Imperial Navy's reserves. Grand Moff Tarkin, cease all non-essential Death Star operations. Divert all resources to finding and eliminating this aggressor. Every Star Destroyer, every TIE fighter, every trooper, they are to be directed towards this single objective." Tarkin, ever pragmatic, pressed for details. "My lord, intelligence is fragmented. We have no FTL signature for his arrival, no known ship schematics, no identified species. How do we target an enemy we cannot define?" "You define him by his destruction," Palpatine roared, Force lightning crackling at his fingertips. "He took Lord Vader. He shattered Coruscant's defenses. He dares challenge me. He must be eliminated. Find his capital ship, find its point of origin, and for the Force's sake, determine how he resists the Force itself." Palpatine knew, deep within the churning maelstrom of his dark side power, that Thanos wasn't immune to the Force. He simply resisted it in a way no being ever had. It was a will of such monumental, unyielding density that it deflected mental assaults, absorbed energy manipulations, and defied direct physical influence. It was as if Thanos' mind was a fortress of pure resolve, his body a living bulwark against the Force's subtle and overt manipulations. This was an affront to Palpatine's very philosophy of control through the Force. Meanwhile, Thanos had returned to Sanctuary 2. Darth Vader, stripped of his armor, lay strapped to a specialized medical table in a repurposed Chitauri infirmary. Thanos personally oversaw his reconstruction. He had ordered his scientists to analyze Vader's cybernetics, his force sensitivity, and his unique physiology. Thanos was fascinated by the blend of machine and organic, the raw power residing in a seemingly broken form. He saw not a defeated foe, but a potential tool, refined and repurposed. Ebony Maw, ever the manipulator, hovered nearby. "My lord, our analysis shows a profound biomechanical integration. His connection to this force is symbiotic with his rage and pain. We can sever it, or we can amplify it, channel it." Thanos, inspecting Vader's severed arm, still sparking with exposed wires, considered this. No, his rage is what makes him formidable. Amplify his pain. Link his cybernetics to our systems. His new arm will be superior, integrated with our energy shielding and capable of kinetic feedback. He will not merely feel my power, he will become an extension of it. He will still be Darth Vader, but a Vader reforged in my image, his will bent to mine. Under Maw's cruel supervision, Vader's reconstruction began. Chitauri technology, cold and alien, began to integrate with Imperial cybernetics. His life support systems were modified, his new arm a grotesque fusion of his original prosthetics and jagged, energy-absorbing alien metal. Vader's consciousness flickered through unimaginable pain, his mind being systematically reprogrammed, twisted, and reforged. He was being broken, not through the Force, but through sheer technological dominance and the overwhelming will of Thanos. The galaxy, ignorant of Vader's fate, braced for Imperial retribution. But Palpatine's initial strikes were met with bewildering efficiency. Imperial probe droids sent to the deep core sector vanished. Reconnaissance flights were intercepted by previously unseen Chitauri fighter craft. Star destroyers attempting to pinpoint Sanctuary 2 found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned, their shields collapsing under barrages of focused energy. Thanos was not just stronger, he was smarter. He had already begun assimilating Imperial intelligence, dissecting their tactics, and adapting his own. On a newly conquered world, once a thriving Imperial outpost, Thanos addressed his burgeoning empire. A mix of his alien legions and now intimidated Imperial defectors who had witnessed his power. Holograms projected his colossal image across ravaged cityscapes. "This galaxy," he boomed, his voice resonating with terrifying authority, "is rife with imbalance. One empire, built on fear, consumed by greed, allowing life to proliferate without purpose. I offer true balance. Pain will be temporary, order eternal." He showed them images of planets he had culled in his own universe, worlds brought back from the brink of ecological collapse by his brutal intervention, worlds that now thrived, with exactly half their populations remaining. The implications were horrifying. Palpatine desired galactic conquest. Thanos sought galactic reordering. Palpatine wanted to rule. Thanos wanted to remake. And the first tool in this remaking, a symbol of Palpatine's shattered authority, was being forged in the heart of Thanos' new dominion, a far more terrifying Darth Vader. The Emperor's fury burned, but a cold, alien calculation had already begun to unravel his plans. With Darth Vader reforged and his intelligence networks assimilated, Thanos swiftly began his systematic conquest of the core worlds, starting with those closest to Coruscant. His initial objective was not total annihilation, but selective culling, a brutal demonstration of his philosophy of balance. Worlds like Chandrila, Duro, and Alderaan, though the latter's fate was still in its future under Palpatine's original timeline, became testaments to his terrifying efficiency. Chitauri dropships descended, Outriders swarmed, and Thanos' own lieutenants, like Proxima Midnight and Cull Obsidian, led the ground assaults. These weren't battles of strategic importance for resources, but acts of galactic arithmetic. Half of each world's population was systematically eliminated, chosen at random. There was no resistance the Empire could mount that was swift or coordinated enough to prevent these atrocities. Imperial forces, demoralized by the defeat of Vader and the overwhelming power of Thanos, found their once unshakable discipline eroding. The Empire was built on fear, and now there was a greater fear, a more absolute and impersonal terror than even Palpatine could inspire. Whole Imperial garrisons, witnessing the devastation and the cold, unfeeling methodology of Thanos' culling, surrendered. Their commanders either executed or forcibly conscripted into Thanos' burgeoning Imperial Legion. Thanos, ever the pragmatist, was quick to integrate existing Imperial infrastructure into his own. Star Destroyers, once symbols of Palpatine's tyranny, were captured. Their crews either exterminated or re-educated into Thanos' new order, their Navy computers reprogrammed, their comms now broadcasting Thanos' grim decrees. The sight of Imperial-class Star Destroyers flying alongside Sanctuary 2, their hulls bearing the crude yet terrifying symbol of Thanos' double-bladed sword, became a chilling reality across the core. The capital of Coruscant, though its central command was broken, continued to operate under the shadow of Thanos' orbital fleet. He had not culled Coruscant yet, viewing it as a symbolic prize, a final testament to his eventual triumph over Palpatine's order. Palpatine, holed up in a secure, hidden bunker beneath the ravaged Imperial Palace, felt the Force scream with the deaths of billions. His rage, a tempest of dark-side energy, threatened to tear him apart. He had seen countless acts of violence, inflicted unimaginable suffering, but never had he witnessed such calculated, dispassionate destruction. This was not about power, as he understood it, but about a twisted ideal, a cosmic equation. "He is a nihilist," Palpatine hissed to himself, his voice raw. "A destroyer for destruction's sake, cloaked in false philosophy. He is an infection, a cancer upon the galaxy." He focused his efforts on the Death Star. He realized that conventional fleets were useless against Thanos. The weapon had to be absolute. Tarkin was given carte blanche, urged to accelerate construction by any means necessary, diverting every remaining resource, every available slave crew, to complete the ultimate weapon. Palpatine believed that if anything could destroy Sanctuary 2 and Thanos himself, it was the Death Star. He poured his vast dark-side energy into arcane rituals, attempting to glimpse Thanos' weaknesses, to find a vulnerability to the Force. But the Titan's presence remained a cold, unyielding wall in the cosmic tapestry. Meanwhile, a new Darth Vader emerged from the bowels of Sanctuary 2. His new left arm was a gleaming, dark metal prosthetic, visibly larger and more imposing than its predecessor, crisscrossed with faint, glowing alien circuitry. His iconic helmet was still present, but subtle modifications to its internal systems allowed him to interface directly with Chitauri technology. Most chillingly, his connection to the Force, while still present, felt different. It was colder, sharper, less fueled by personal rage and more by a detached clinical efficiency. Thanos' conditioning had not broken Vader's will, but bent it, redirected it. He now saw the chaos of the galaxy through Thanos' eyes, the necessity of the purge as a logical, albeit brutal, solution. He was still the instrument of galactic order, but the order he now served was that of the Mad Titan. Thanos presented his new enforcer to his assembled generals. "Behold Darth Vader, reborn. A testament to true will, now aligned with universal purpose. He will lead my fleets. He will bring my balance." Vader knelt before Thanos, the act a terrifying symbol of his new allegiance. "My lord," his modulated voice rumbled, now laced with an eerie calm. "The Empire's resistance is illogical. Their emperor is consumed by petty ambition. I will deliver the galaxy to your order." The Force around him was a churning maelstrom, but its focus was no longer Palpatine's will, but Thanos's. The galaxy shuddered. Unknowingly, at the rise of a new, far more terrifying Vader. News of the unfolding horrors in the core worlds, slowly, agonizingly, reached the scattered cells of the nascent rebel alliance. Leia Organa, hidden on a remote planetary outpost, received encrypted transmissions detailing the systematic culling on Chandrila. Her informants, once terrified of Imperial reprisals, now spoke of a terror far greater. A silent, unfeeling force that swept through systems with dispassionate cruelty. Stories of worlds halved by an alien entity known only as the Purifier, or the Balancer, filtered through the underground networks. Mon Mothma, from her secret base on Dantooine, convened an emergency meeting with the Alliance High Command. This Thanos, she stated, her voice tight with grief and fear, is an existential threat unlike anything we have faced. The Empire, for all its tyranny, sought to rule us. This creature seeks to reduce us, to erase half of all life for some twisted cosmic equation. She displayed holographic images. Once thriving cities now eerily silent, half empty, the remaining inhabitants living in stunned, perpetual fear. The dilemma for the rebellion was agonizing. Their primary objective was the overthrow of the Galactic Empire, the liberation of systems from Palpatine's iron grip. But now, an even greater tyranny had emerged, one that viewed life itself as a resource to be managed, not merely subjugated. Some argued that this new threat might weaken the Empire enough for the rebellion to strike. Others, including Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, before his preordained demise by the Death Star, argued that allowing Thanos to continue would doom the entire galaxy, leaving nothing worth fighting for. "Do we ally with the Empire?" one general questioned, the words tasting like ash. "Do we fight alongside our oppressors against this new monster?" The idea was unthinkable, repugnant. Yet the alternative, standing by while Thanos purged half the galaxy, was equally horrifying. "The enemy of my enemy is not always my friend," Leia stated, her young face etched with grim resolve. "Sometimes, the enemy of my enemy is simply a larger, more destructive enemy. We cannot align with Palpatine, who created this vacuum for something worse to fill. We must find another way." Their discussions were interrupted by a new, chilling transmission. It was a clear, unencrypted broadcast, emanating from Coruscant, but bearing the distinct, alien energy signature of Sanctuary 2. Thanos himself appeared on the holoscreen, his colossal form casting a long shadow, a grim panorama of a half-culled core world behind him. And beside him, his gaze colder, his posture even more menacing than before, stood the newly reforged Darth Vader. "Behold," Thanos boomed across the galaxy, his voice devoid of emotion, "the true nature of power. This galaxy has suffered under the illusions of choice, of chaos, of unbridled life. I bring order. I bring balance. The so-called Galactic Empire is a broken system, its emperor clinging to petty ambition. Its greatest weapon, Darth Vader, now understands true purpose." Vader stepped forward, his new arm gleaming. "The Emperor's rule is a farce. His force is weak, his ambition myopic. Thanos offers ultimate order. Those who resist the culling are obstacles to the inevitable. My purpose is now absolute. Your rebellion is a futile spasm against true galactic destiny." His voice, though still modulated, carried an undertone of chilling finality, stripped of much of its former rage, replaced by a cold, calculating conviction. The rebels watched in stunned silence. Vader, the Emperor's loyal enforcer, had been turned. The implications were catastrophic. Thanos had not only defeated Palpatine's greatest weapon but twisted it into his own. On a remote asteroid in the Outer Rim, a small group of surviving Jedi Knights, living in exile since Order 66, felt the horrifying shift in the Force. Kakruk, the ancient whip-hid Jedi Master, groaned as the cosmic web was violently torn and restitched. "A new darkness," he rasped. "One that does not seek to dominate the Force, but to redefine it through annihilation. A will unlike any the Sith have ever possessed." The presence of Thanos was a gaping wound in the Force, a void where life once sang, now replaced by a chilling silence. The rise of Thanos and the horrifying allegiance of Vader presented the galaxy with an unthinkable choice. Fight against a foe who would destroy half of all life, or allow themselves to be consumed by it, only to face Palpatine's diminished, yet still tyrannical rule afterward. The Rebel Alliance, once clear in its purpose, now faced a dilemma that threatened to break its very spirit. The battle for freedom had become a battle for existence itself, with no clear ally in sight. The Death Star loomed, a partially completed sphere of ultimate destruction, in the orbit of the gas giant Despair. Grand Moff Tarkin pushed his engineers and slave labor to their absolute limits, driven by Palpatine's frantic demands. The Emperor believed this was the galaxy's only hope against Thanos. But Thanos, with Vader's intimate knowledge of Imperial strategy and technology, knew of the Death Star. He saw it not as a threat to be destroyed, but as a tool to be acquired, a magnificent, albeit slow, instrument for his galactic balancing act. Sanctuary 2, accompanied by its fleet of Chitauri cruisers and newly assimilated Imperial-class Star Destroyers, jumped into the Despair system. The sudden arrival sent the Imperial construction fleet into a frenzy of panicked alerts. Tarkin, on the Death Star's bridge, watched the unfolding invasion with a grim realization. They were outmatched. Even with the superweapon's primary laser nearing completion, its defensive systems were still vulnerable, its fighter complement insufficient. "Prepare all turbo lasers," Tarkin barked, his usual composure strained. "Initiate evasive maneuvers. We must protect the station at all costs." Thanos, from his command chair on Sanctuary 2, simply observed. "Vader," he rumbled, "lead the boarding party. Bring me this Death Star. It is an imperfect tool, but its potential for universal purpose is intriguing." Darth Vader, now leading a contingent of elite Chitauri and Outriders, piloted a modified Lambda-class shuttle, its hull emblazoned with Thanos' symbol, through the defensive screen. His force powers, sharpened and refocused by Thanos' influence, felt like a cold extension of his new master's will. The Imperial fighters, few and desperate, were swatted aside by Chitauri chariots, their pilots' screams echoing briefly in the void. Vader's boarding party bypassed the Death Star's struggling shields with precision, slamming directly into a primary hangar bay. The ensuing battle was brutal and one-sided. Stormtroopers, fighting for their lives and for the Emperor, were mown down by the sheer ferocity of the Outriders and the disciplined fire of the Chitauri. Vader himself, a dark phantom, moved through the corridors, his reforged lightsaber a deadly blur, now capable of deflecting not just blaster bolts, but also the alien energy lances of his new allies. He cut down any Imperial who dared resist, his internal monologue a chilling echo of Thanos' philosophy. Resistance is futile. Order is inevitable. Tarkin, recognizing the imminent fall of the station, made a desperate decision. He would activate the Death Star's partially operational superlaser and attempt to fire it at Sanctuary 2. A suicidal act, one that would likely destroy his own station in the process, but a final defiant act against the Mad Titan. "Target the flagship," Tarkin commanded, his voice hoarse. "Charge the primary weapon. Full power." As the main dish began to glow with a sickly green energy, a new presence entered the bridge. Darth Vader. His arrival sent a wave of terror through the remaining Imperial officers. "Grand Moff Tarkin," Vader's voice resonated, devoid of its previous subservience to Palpatine. "Cease this futile gesture. This weapon will serve a higher purpose." "Vader? You traitor!" Tarkin snarled, drawing his personal blaster. "You serve the Emperor!" Vader merely raised his new, gleaming metallic hand. A surge of force energy, cold and clinical, slammed into Tarkin, not crushing his windpipe, but freezing him in place, holding him aloft. The Emperor is a relic of chaos. His ambition is petty. Thanos offers true galactic order. Vader then turned to the control panel, his fingers, augmented by Chitauri interfaces, moving with impossible speed across the console, overriding Tarkin's commands. The targeting sequence was rerouted, the power redirected. The Death Star's superlaser, instead of targeting Sanctuary 2, began to lock onto a barren, uninhabited moon in the system, a target chosen by Thanos to demonstrate the weapon's destructive capability under his command. A chilling display of raw power, a new form of diplomacy. Thanos watched from Sanctuary 2 as the Death Star's superlaser fired, not at his fleet, but at the distant moon. A blinding green beam lanced across the void, impacting the moon and obliterating it in a spectacular, silent explosion. The Mad Titan offered a rare, grim smile. "A most effective tool," he murmured. "And now, it is ours." The galaxy now had two superweapons, Thanos' own destructive might, and the Death Star, now under his command, its power bent to his will, a chilling testament to his ability to corrupt and control the instruments of even the most formidable empires. The remaining Imperials, watching the moon explode, understood that the game had changed. Palpatine's greatest weapon had become Thanos's, The complete takeover of the Death Star sent a tremor of existential dread through the remaining Imperial forces. Palpatine, witnessing the destruction of the uninhabited moon and the sight of Vader, his own apprentice, controlling his ultimate weapon for an alien master, descended into a maelstrom of incandescent fury. His hidden bunker shook with the sheer force of his dark-side power. Force storms ravaging the lower levels of Coruscant, destroying anything within range. He dares bend my will, steal my weapon, corrupt my apprentice, Palpatine shrieked, his voice echoing with raw, unchecked hatred. This Thanos is an affront to the Sith. He does not understand the true power of the dark side. He knew now that conventional warfare was useless. Fleets were shattered, commanders broken, and his most potent weapon was in enemy hands. Palpatine had only one recourse: to unleash the full, unfathomable power of the dark side, a power he had cultivated for decades, against Thanos himself. He would not just fight, he would annihilate. Thanos, meanwhile, used the Death Star as a symbol, a chilling declaration of his new order. Instead of indiscriminately destroying planets, he used its threat to demand immediate compliance with his culling protocols. Worlds that resisted were warned, comply, or suffer the fate of Despair's moon. And with Darth Vader, now coldly efficient and utterly ruthless, overseeing the implementation, few dared defy. Vader, with a single, brutal command, could initiate the culling of half a planet, his detachment complete, his gaze unwavering as countless lives were extinguished for Thanos' twisted balance. He now saw it as his true purpose, to bring order where Palpatine merely sought tyranny. The Rebel Alliance, watching these events unfold, was in complete disarray. Mon Mothma and Leia debated frantically. "We cannot let Thanos continue," Mon Mothma insisted. "But how do we fight him? He controls the Death Star, the Imperial fleet, and even Darth Vader. We are but a spark against a cosmic fire." Leia, however, saw a terrible, desperate opportunity. Thanos and Palpatine are still enemies. Their conflict is personal, absolute. If they clash, truly clash, it could create an opening. A moment of weakness for both. The idea was horrifying, to hope for a greater tragedy to escape a lesser one. But it was the only strategic path that offered even a sliver of hope. On Coruscant, Palpatine began his preparations for an ultimate confrontation. He gathered his remaining Inquisitors, his most loyal dark side acolytes, and even some ancient Sith artifacts he had kept hidden. He plunged into deep meditation, drawing on the dark side energy of the entire planet, fueling himself with the despair of billions. His goal: a force attack so potent, it would tear Thanos' very being apart, bypassing his physical resistance by attacking his essence, his connection to his own reality. He would show the Mad Titan what true, unbridled power was. Thanos, through his intelligence network, now including many Imperial defectors who had seen Palpatine's fear, became aware of Palpatine's deepening rage and the unusual energy fluctuations emanating from the Imperial palace. "He will come," Thanos stated, a faint, almost amused glint in his eyes. The small-minded tyrant convinced his dark side is omnipotent. He will learn the folly of mysticism against true inherent will. He ordered the Death Star, now fully operational and crewed by a mix of reprogrammed Imperials and Chitauri, to position itself over Coruscant. Sanctuary 2 took up a high orbit. Vader, standing beside Thanos on the bridge, surveyed the planet below, his internal systems detecting the rising tide of dark side energy emanating from the palace. "My lord," Vader rumbled, "the Emperor's power is indeed considerable. He will unleash it all." "Let him," Thanos replied, a cold certainty in his voice. "He will find that even the Force bends to the will that transcends it." The stage was set. Palpatine, driven by unimaginable fury and the fear of losing his dominion, would challenge Thanos directly. Two titans, two visions of galactic order, were on a collision course, and the fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance, a pawn in a game of cosmic supremacy. The very fabric of reality seemed to strain under the immense, conflicting energies gathering over Coruscant. The ultimate battle for the galaxy was about to begin, an exchange that would define the future of existence itself. The final confrontation between Emperor Palpatine and Thanos erupted over Coruscant, a cataclysmic clash that shook the very foundations of the galactic capital. Palpatine, draped in his ceremonial robes, emerged from his deepest bunker, floating on a tempest of pure dark-side energy. He ascended through the ravaged spires of the Imperial Palace, his form crackling with blue-white force lightning, his yellow eyes burning with cosmic hatred. The sky above Coruscant, usually a canvas of endless traffic lanes, twisted into a maelstrom of unnatural storms, reflecting the Emperor's boundless rage. Thanos waited for him, not on the bridge of Sanctuary 2, but on a massive landing platform directly facing the Imperial Palace, accompanied by a retinue of his generals and the reforged Darth Vader. The Mad Titan stood impassive, arms crossed, his golden armor gleaming against the chaotic backdrop. He had chosen this location to make a statement. He would meet the Emperor on his own turf, on a world Palpatine considered his sacred domain, and utterly shatter his illusion of power. As Palpatine drew near, a figure of pure, terrifying power, he unleashed a scream that was felt across the entire planet through the Force. You dare defile my galaxy, steal my servant, challenge my throne. I am the Dark Lord of the Sith. I am the Emperor. I am the Force. He lashed out with a torrent of Force lightning, bolts thicker and more devastating than any Vader had ever witnessed, directly at Thanos. The lightning slammed into the Mad Titan, engulfing him in an inferno of pure dark-side energy. But unlike any being Palpatine had ever struck, Thanos did not fall. He stood his ground, enduring the onslaught. His skin sizzled, his armor glowed red-hot, but he simply took it, his immense will acting as a shield against the Force itself. He was not immune, but his inherent cosmic physiology and an unyielding will allowed him to absorb and dissipate what would instantly incinerate any other mortal. Your Force is merely amplified emotion, Thanos rumbled, his voice strained but steady amidst the crackling energy. Accrued power. You mistake passion for strength. With a roar of defiance, Thanos lunged through the lightning. Palpatine, caught off guard by the sheer physical determination, widened his eyes. Thanos smashed his fist into Palpatine's chest, a blow of such monumental force it splintered Palpatine's ancient Sith armor and sent him careening backward through the air, spitting blood. Palpatine recovered in midair, fueled by pure malice, and unleashed a force wave that tore apart the landing platform around Thanos. He then used the Force to hurl massive chunks of durasteel and debris at the Titan, trying to bury him. But Thanos was relentless. He simply powered through the barrage, ignoring the wounds, his focus absolute. He closed the distance again, striking Palpatine repeatedly with crushing blows. Each punch was like a meteor impact, shaking the Emperor to his core, disrupting his connection to the Force through sheer physical trauma. Palpatine shrieked, clawing at Thanos with spectral Force tendrils, trying to rip him apart on a molecular level. This was when Darth Vader stepped forward. He had been observing, his internal processors calculating, his reforged will fully aligned with Thanos. He activated his lightsaber and, with a chillingly precise movement, sliced through the Force tendrils that Palpatine had been extending. Master, Vader's voice echoed, cold and devoid of all former reverence. Your ambition blinds you. Your power is finite. Thanos offers true, cosmic order. Palpatine, staggering from Thanos' assault, turned his hate-filled gaze on Vader. Traitor! You dare betray the Sith? He mustered a final, desperate surge of Force lightning, directing it at Vader, hoping to burn out the last vestiges of his former apprentice. But Vader's new arm, integrated with Chitauri energy-absorbing technology, glowed. He actually absorbed a significant portion of the lightning, channeling it before deflecting the rest with his lightsaber. It was a partial immunity, a technological counter to Palpatine's pure Force power. The Emperor's eyes widened in horror. His own creation, empowered by an alien hand, was now capable of resisting his ultimate power. Thanos seized the moment of Palpatine's distraction. With a final, crushing blow, he slammed his fist into Palpatine's head, forcing the Emperor's concentration to break. Palpatine's Force shield flickered, and then, with a sound like tearing fabric, Thanos physically reached out and crushed Palpatine's throat, snapping his neck with a brutal, final force. The Dark Lord of the Sith, Emperor Palpatine, the most powerful Force user the galaxy had seen in a millennium, died not by lightsaber or Force power, but by the sheer, unyielding physical might of Thanos. The Force across the galaxy screamed in anguish, a sudden horrifying silence falling in the wake of such immense power being extinguished. Thanos stood over the crumpled, lifeless form of the Emperor. He looked at Vader, who stood silent, impassive. "The petty tyrant is gone," Thanos stated, his voice now calm, satisfied. "The galaxy is ours to balance. Prepare the Death Star. The culling of Coruscant will begin." The Force still reacted to him, but it now recoiled, acknowledging a new, terrifying master. The death of Emperor Palpatine sent a shockwave of terror and despair across the galaxy. The Force, which had for so long been a canvas for his malevolence, now felt empty. A vast, echoing void where the life song of the universe once resonated. Thanos, standing triumphant amidst the ruins of the Imperial Palace, had proven his claim. His will transcended even the most powerful Force user. With Palpatine gone, the already fractured Imperial remnants collapsed completely, either surrendering to Thanos' new order or scattering into the unknown regions, utterly broken. The culling of Coruscant was carried out with chilling efficiency. The Death Star, positioned in high orbit, threatened, but it was Thanos' ground forces and the reforged Darth Vader who oversaw the grim task. Half of Coruscant's quadrillions of inhabitants were systematically eliminated. The process was cold, impersonal, and utterly devastating. Vader, moving through the empty, half-silent cityscape, displayed no emotion, no remorse. He was an instrument of Thanos' will, a dark shepherd bringing balance to a world he once helped oppress. The Force around him was a chilling presence, less a tool of passion, and more a conduit for Thanos' cosmic logic. Thanos then formally declared himself the Emperor of Balanced Worlds, his new empire stretching across the core and inner rim. His regime was not about power for its own sake, but about the brutal enforcement of his philosophy. Every planet, every system, every species would be subjected to the culling, a relentless process of halving populations to ensure sustainable growth. His armada, now a formidable fusion of Sanctuary II, Chitauri cruisers, and captured Star Destroyers, was dispatched to enforce this new, terrifying order. The scattered rebel alliance was left in a state of profound despair. Mon Mothma, Leia, and the remaining leaders watched as the galaxy they fought to free was instead consumed by an even darker tyranny. Thanos' rule offered no hope of negotiation, no weakness to exploit, no ideology to corrupt. It was simply an absolute, unyielding decree. There was no light side to appeal to, no compassion to be found. The Force, for the first time in millennia, seemed utterly helpless against a foe who simply did not care about its power or its balance. "What do we do now?" a young, distraught rebel pilot asked, his voice cracking. "He has the Death Star. He has Vader. He has everything." Leia looked out at the stars, her face etched with a grief deeper than any she had known. "We survive," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "We hide, we remember, and we wait for a new hope, however faint." The rebellion, once a beacon, was now reduced to a desperate flicker, retreating to the furthest, most desolate corners of the galaxy, trying to evade the all-seeing eyes of Thanos and his ruthlessly efficient enforcer. Darth Vader, now Thanos' most trusted general, sat on the bridge of the Death Star. He looked at the vast emptiness of space, a galaxy now truly silenced. His purpose was complete, not the petty ambition of a Sith Lord, but the grand design of the Mad Titan. He no longer felt the simmering rage, the constant pain that had defined his existence. There was only a cold, detached sense of order, a terrifying peace that came from the systematic extermination of chaos. He was Thanos' perfect servant, a galaxy-altering weapon of unparalleled might. Thanos, from his throne on Sanctuary II, now orbited Coruscant. The vibrant jewel of the galaxy had become a monument to his will, half empty, half silent, its remaining inhabitants living under a regime of absolute, unblinking cosmic order. He had achieved his goal, The Star Wars galaxy was now balanced, but at what cost? The vibrant, chaotic energy of life that defined the Force was muted, its symphony reduced to a chilling, sustained hum of compliant existence. The Force was still there, connecting all things, but now it merely served as the cosmic nervous system of Thanos' desolate dominion. The galaxy had been conquered, not by a tyrannical emperor, but by a nihilistic titan. And in its grim, quiet balance, it would live forever in the shadow of the Mad Titan's iron fist. The galaxy was forever changed. Thanos, the Mad Titan, had achieved his grim vision of balance, not through the Force, but through sheer, overwhelming will and an unshakable, terrifying conviction. The Galactic Empire, once the apex of tyranny, was shattered, its emperor a mere footnote in the wake of a cosmic force far grander and far more absolute. Worlds lay half empty, silent testaments to a brutal culling, their populations meticulously halved for the sake of an unnatural order. Darth Vader, once the fearsome enforcer of Palpatine, became the chilling instrument of Thanos, his force powers bent to a new, detached purpose. The Rebel Alliance, their hope all but extinguished, retreated into the deepest shadows, a mere whisper in a galaxy silenced by conquest. The Force itself, once a vibrant tapestry of life and conflict, now resonated with a hollow hum, its natural chaos replaced by a cold, enforced equilibrium. Thanos had left his indelible mark, not as a conqueror seeking dominion, but as a cosmic gardener pruning away half of life to ensure what he perceived as universal prosperity. The galaxy existed, but its spirit was broken, its future a chilling testament to the terrifying potential of an alien will unbound by the conventions of the Force. The stars would remember the Titan, and the crushing, terrifying peace he brought. May the Force be with you. More stories await.